Cousins of you. How's it going?
So it's been a while since we've seen you. Good to see you back. So I guess my first question is, what have you guys been doing to keep yourself busy during quarantines?
I've just been hiding. I just locked the door and that was it. Just 2 months now. Just hiding. I recommend it highly. You don't have to talk to people. You don't have to do anything. I don't even answer the phone half the time. But yeah, before that, when life was still happening, we're still just doing the same thing, grinding it out, working, trying to get more work. Did a series for Apple, and
I didn't know that.
yeah, for Antiquated Productions. So we'll find out what happens with that. Here we go. Somebody hit
How
something.
many shows did you make?
Well, we just shot the pilot so far. So we'll see what happens. Yeah, that was it. I don't even know what I've been doing. Just working, living, doing the same thing, You know what it is. We all do the same thing. You just grind it out every day. Except when I go to work, I feel lucky. That's the only difference. That's the best difference, So, and when I get to come here and do something like this, I feel lucky. I appreciate you guys very much. Yeah, you don't know how much sometimes you guys, your kind words and kind thoughts can be really important sometimes. Your turn.
People have said to me, am I on?
Yeah, now I am.
Okay. Horror movie fans are the best fans in the world. And they really, really, really are. The fact that you have come so far, you drove from Dallas, people drove from all over the country. And he was one of the ones who said to me, I'm not gonna cancel, I'm not gonna do that to Bill. I'm not gonna do that to Bill. I'm in New Mexico for the summer with my 80-year-old mother. And believe me when I tell you, I am not taking care of her. You could mow her down with a steamroller and she'd pop back up. Then you could back over with a steamroller and she'd pop back up. I've always said, and she won't see this because she's not on Facebook, if there was a nuclear war, the only things left on Earth would be the cockroaches and my mother. Like, Mimi, come help me with these strawberries. So we are cooking up a storm, and what's happened to me would never have happened any other way. Never have happened. This is the first time in 19 years that I'm not running for an airplane. And I wouldn't have had time for my mother. I wouldn't have had time for my brother. I wouldn't have had the kind of time that I have here with you now. And so much of this lockdown, it depends on how you look at it. This has been one of the biggest blessings of my life. And so many people have that same perspective. That we're really able to look at what we love, who we love, and what's important, and think, okay, maybe we're not going to be in this life forever. How am I going to live out the rest of these years? How are we going to make the most of this? And make sure that the people around you are forgiven if they need to be, and feel loved. So, I've been hanging with my mom, learning all of her lemon meringue pie secrets. Trying to get all those breading, how to fry it right. We're from the South. So, you're on my Facebook and you're looking at collard greens and cornbread, I'm home with my mother. And I'm writing up a story. So, I'm not in a position to make a public statement or release anything yet. But I just want to see a show of hands and some shouts. If I wrote something for him and maybe me, how many of y'all would like that? It's on the cooker. It's in the oven, kids. It is in the oven. And for me, I think that this also is just, it's lessons in resilience that we're able to look at ourselves and the years have gone by. And you don't have to age like your parents did, or like their parents did. We still have opportunities available that our parents didn't have at our age. So, the party's on. The party's still on. And it's just incredible to really realize how precious this life is. I think the planet took a big breath. The trees are taking a breath, the animals are coming out. The pollution's gone away. You can't go outside, you gotta go inside. And there's enormous examinations of your spiritual beliefs. And who are you, what are you here for, what are we really all about? So it's been really wonderful, this quarantine. It's weird, it's uncomfortable. Just going through the airport and having all the shops closed, that I wasn't prepared for that. I don't know why, and I know you all know this, that something small will be wrong, and you just won't burst into tears. But also bursting into tears out of gratitude. So I'm trying to get myself duct taped and super glued back together, just in case I have the opportunity to go back on camera. But
You will.
once I have those pop marks and things, it won't matter anymore. As long as I'm in possession makeup, it won't matter anymore.
I'm just sitting here thinking, I know there's not a ton of us here yet, but we're sitting in a place, I think we all kind of found our place. We're sitting in a place where a woman can be sitting in there with a 12-inch long knife sticking out of her bag, and it doesn't seem weird. It's perfectly normal.
And welcome to the East Side of Indianapolis.
It's like, there's nothing, if you like went to the bus with that bag. But here, it's just like, yep. Oh, I wonder who signed it. So, anyway, it's kind of cool. Found a place, right? All right.
All right, so Amelia, you've recently taken a trip to go do some work with some animals. Can we talk about that for just a few minutes?
You bet. You bet.
So real quick, before you start, how many people in here, do you guys follow her Facebook page at all? Anyone in here? So you guys know about her animal work? Oh, wow. Okay, so cool. I'm not the only one interviewing myself, then this is awesome. All right, so please, go ahead.
Well, right before all this blew up, my last seminar, I teach retreats, and I teach people how to communicate better with animals, other animals. People always say, do you work with humans too, or just animals? And I say, you mean other animals? We are an animal. We are one of 5 great apes, by far the most destructive one. But I work with everything from tigers to lions to elephants, great white sharks, cobra, penguins, kangaroos, giraffe, just about anything that anybody brings me. When I teach a seminar, we have parrots and ferrets and cats and dogs and horses. Now, if we get it together, and if you're at all interested in this, and if I'm allowed to do this, I'm going to teach a weekend workshop in Chicago in September. That's going to be my first time back actually teaching. I've got 6 books out. The latest one is called Whispers from the Wild. And I taught a seminar in Hawaii, and we took a meeting with the whales. Actually, the whales took a meeting with me. And the humpbacks they come through at a particular time. exhilarating to acknowledge the fact that you're allowed to live on this planet alongside such beauty. And I think that's really what this lockdown is doing. Because I mean, even now you may go outside and it's a hummingbird, it's a butterfly, it's a grasshopper, it's a lizard. It's some creature who's coming out to acknowledge you and be curious about you and be loving, because that's how God made them. And the human beings are the problem. So if we can get ourselves back in the program, trying to learn how to live in harmony with all the other creatures that God created, and the Spirit of God within us, because the Spirit of God within us is the same Spirit of God within your dog, your cat, your horse, your bird. So a lot of what's happened with me in lockdown has just been I've had time to do privates. I'm teaching online. I've got people calling.
I'll tell you a story. Now, oh, I might now. Now I'm in the mic. In and out. Okay, what? Am I in and out?
You can hear me, can't you?
No, you're good.
Okay, cool.
You're good. Go ahead, Beth.
All right, does anybody have a question about any sort of animal? Anybody having a problem or anybody having a question about?
Is my dog happy? I'm serious. Is that a no?
You would know that. You would know that.
I don't know, because he don't talk to me. I talk to him, he looks at me like, dude, I'm a dog.
No, he's talking to you. You just don't hear him.
Okay. I think he's happy.
Well, a question? Then I will tell you a crazy story. Gigi's been to some of my workshops, and this is how it works for me. I had done a big radio show for the animal work that I do a couple years ago. And I got a phone call the next day. And it was a big, gruff man. A big man. And he was crying his eyes out. And he was in New York, and so he was talking like this, you know, he's from the East Coast, and his cat had just died. So, as I was walking along, and this is how things can happen if we're paying attention to signs around us. I look over, and this was right before Halloween, there was a cereal box, and I've never seen this before in my life. A cereal box from Trader Joe's, and it was pumpkin flavored because it was right before Halloween. And it says pumpkin on it. And I checked in with the divine. I said, do you want me to say this? And I heard, yes, you did say that. I said, your cat is with a cat that has died before this cat. And that cat's name was Pumpkin. The guy loses it. He said Pumpkin was his cat that died before this cat. Now what I'm talking about here is something that's inside everybody. Everybody's got intuition. Everybody's got this inner connection. And unfortunately, most of the time we do it in retrospect. We say, I knew I shouldn't have done that. I knew I shouldn't have eaten that. I knew I shouldn't have taken that road to work. I knew I shouldn't have married that woman. I know, you know, I know I shouldn't have bought this. I knew I shouldn't have. I teach people to trust it first. Trust it first. Feel first. Think second. Listen first. Speak second. So I got this guy on the phone, and I tuned in home and I said, you're a cop. You're NYPD, and you're a super highly ranked cop, aren't you? He said he was the head of NYPD SWAT. He's retired now. His name is Steve. So if he sees this, he's one of my new favorite clients, and he always will be. So I hadn't heard from him for a while. And during the lockdown, I get a text. His cat's dying. Another one of his cats is dying. He's one of the toughest men in the world. But when his cats are dying, he calls me. And that's such an honor for me. It's such an honor to be of service to people like this. So I was driving. I was in the Walmart parking lot, and I see the text come in. And I pulled over, and I tuned into the situation, and I texted it back. Said there's a black and white cat spirit waiting. There's an orange tabby waiting in spirit. All the angels have already come. The cats have all come to help her cross over to heaven. They say that they were her children, which is weird because this one would have gone first. And then these human spirits start coming through. Somebody comes through and says, "Oh, Tommy, tell him I said thank you." Okay. Then another one comes in. I get somebody named Harry. Somebody else comes in named Dave. All these young, gorgeous guys, and they're coming in. One of them says, "I had an addiction problem. Tell him he saved my life. Being on the job saved my life." Another one comes in and says, "We all died in a fire." I don't know what's going to happen. So he confirms that the 6 kittens that were the kittens of this cat crossed over first. One was black and white. He knew who that little tabby was. Tommy was his roommate in high school who's crossed over. He knew who the cop was who had the addiction problem. He knew, and then I said, "Why are they all telling me they died in a fire?" He said they all died in 9/11. He lost his entire squadron in 9/11. And they came to me to thank him. 2 names he didn't identify. One of them was Harry and one of them was Dave. I got an email from one of my best friends in London the next day. She's also a very, very famous psychic in London. And she said, "I just lost 2 of my best friends. Please pray for us." Their names are Harvey and Dave. I said, I got it. They came yesterday, and I thought they were for him. So we're exploring the inner quiet, and we're finding that there is a lot of information in that silence. Whether you've got animals that you wish you could connect to, or whether you've got people in heaven you wish you could connect to. It's available to everybody. And it's just a matter of learning how to listen. And what's funny about this is that in Demons 1, I was leading a seance. And I was the character who said, "No, we shouldn't do this. This house is possessed. It's not haunted. It's possessed. We shouldn't do this." So even though I got to turn into the ultimate badass, I was actually the voice of reason in that movie. And good did win out over evil in the end. So when people challenge me about the horror movies, because they know what my books are about and they know in all the churches where I deliver the ministry, I say no, it's the same thing. It's still, good's gonna win out over evil. And I'm sorry about your tongue.
Yeah, well, you're not the only one, so.
All right, so how on that note, you guys filmed Night of the Demons in 1987, right? South Central LA, kind of the height of all the craziness going on in LA. Any funny stories from after filming or anything?
No, it was fine down there.
Really? No
Yeah,
issues?
it was. It actually wasn't South Central. I think it was off of Western. So it was still, it's a pretty bad area, but no, we never had any problems. We had problems. I shot another film, God, maybe a year after that, a few blocks away, a quarter mile away, and we had to shoot every night.
Was that the sorority babes?
No, how was it called? I can't think of it. The Dietrich process. I don't think it ever came out. I don't think they ever finished it. But yeah, every night we were running for our lives. And I just got to the point, I told them, don't run, just stand still. If you don't fall, you didn't get shot. It's okay. Because people were like breaking their ankles, running. We had to call the paramedics on somebody who tripped over a fence. It's like, come on. How scared can you be when you trip over an entire fence?
Now, how did you go to was it a food cart or something like that?
Like a little corner bar.
Yeah, it was, it was, you know, like a burrito stand. I swear to God, it wasn't chicken. That's what my takeaway. I can't, who did I go over there with? I can't remember who I went over there with.
Phil?
I guess it was Phil, yeah.
Phil's arm was missing.
Yeah,
he's
so we're both in makeup.
spewing blood out of his stomach.
Yeah, both in makeup. It's like 8 o'clock in the morning. And I used to, you know, because once you're in it, it gets comfortable, you forget you're wearing it. And I smoked back then, so I would sit out in the front lawn of this house and smoke. And you'd see these kids walking to school, there was an elementary school down the road. And that was always odd. And I was like, what's with these kids, man? Just like, because they're always looking at you like, some would cross the street and they never quite put it together. And so Phil's like, I'm hungry, let's go across this. So we go across, and Phil loves to tell the story this way. As we're walking up, there's like 4 obvious gangbangers sitting at a table. And they both turn and look at the 2 white guys. And then they get a second look, and he's like, all 4 of them got up and just walked away at the same time. And I didn't even notice it. He told me after. And I go to order, and the guy's just like, I'm like, dude, I just want a chicken burrito, man.
Now, what degree of possession were you in?
This was full on.
This was when you
before
were
the
burned
burn.
and
No, it was
slimed
before
and
the burn, though. But it was the full on with the blood and the
And just
full
so you
process.
know, it's illegal now. They passed laws that you can't drive through a Wendy's or a Taco Bell in effects makeup while you're spewing blood. Because somebody could have a heart attack and die.
I didn't know that.
So, but back then, in the good old 80s,
Well, that happened with
in the lawless 80s.
Billy. Billy always likes to tell the story that he went home covered in the blood from the night that he did his death scene, and he got pulled over on the freeway with highway patrol.
He did?
Yeah.
He did?
Yeah, and he had to explain to him, oh no. And Billy was like you're talking about, he's like, Billy is, what was Billy's character?
Sal.
Sal.
Yeah,
Billy
yeah,
is Sal.
That is true.
He's a more refined version of Sal, but that's him. He talks like that. That's his real accent. So he's trying to tell this highway, no, officer, I'm telling you, there's not a body in the trunk. Would you please just let me go and fuck home? I was working. It's 5 o'clock in the morning. I always come home like this. I'm going to jail anyway.
I think you're kind of close to your character.
But yeah, so that's the way it was. You know, we go in there and we order, and the guy wouldn't even take my order in the beginning. It took me a while to get his attention. And I still couldn't figure out why. And it wasn't until we're walking back that Phil's like, dude, you realize you're in makeup, right? I said, I didn't put it together. And then I ate that freaking burrito. I swear to God, it was not chicken. I don't know what kind of meat was in it, but it wasn't chicken. Look at me. I took 2 bites and I threw the thing away. I never went back. Tell me it wasn't chicken. I don't know what it was.
Did I blast your brains out of the back of your head, or was that the second?
What?
When my tongue unrolled and the brain.
No, you bit. Yeah, that was a different thing.
You know,
You
there's
just bit.
one picture that I hate the most. I don't mind the full-on possession pictures. I love the glamour pictures. There is one picture that I hate, and every time you look on the internet, it's all over the internet. I get it all the time. And it's when I just bit your tongue out, and I'm just dribbling blood.
Yeah. Well, it's a good look for you.
Well, maybe I just looked really satisfied. I must have had a look on my face like, yeah, he deserved it. He had it coming. He had it coming.
Yeah, that was. And then you ripped my earring out.
What?
You ripped my earring out. You know that story. I've told it a million times.
I didn't mean to do that. I'm
like earring, I don't know. Has anybody heard these stories before? Are they new to anybody? All right, well, there's a couple people say, oh, I have to suffer with it. She was wearing lace gloves, and I had this long dangly earring, a pair of handcuffs, and it got caught in her glove. So as I spun off and fell off and she bit my tongue out, it ripped the earring out of my ear. And I go into makeup to get cleaned up so I can take. And the poor makeup girl, she's washing me down, and she starts pulling on my ear, and she goes, "Oh my God, that's you!" Because the insides of the ear were outside, and she's tugging on it, trying to clean it off. So anyway, luckily we did have enough budget that we had a real set paramedic. He came and shoved everything back in, and I'm like, "You got to put the earring back in." And he's like, "Oh, you don't want the earring back in there? Are you nuts?" I'm like, "You gotta put the earring back in. I'm not gonna, it's continuity. We're gonna go back and forth. This earring's there, and it's like 2 inches long." So he's like, "You're gonna hate this." And I'm like, "I don't care, just do it." And he had some lidocaine he put on there, and then he just shoved it through the scab. And yeah, it was about like that. Yeah, it's like that. But, it's like, I just wasn't going to have it. So we kept, because it infected immediately, of course. So we just kept it covered up with makeup until after the film, and then I could take it out. But there was a smart thing. Now, nobody does this anymore, because everybody puts in, those big, thick things now. But the writer, Joe Augustin, told me, when you get your ear pierced, take it out and go get quality wire. Just the little girls know, the little thin wire ones. And put that in there. It'll keep it open, and it's very small, and it's comfortable, and it's easy to clean, and all that stuff. So that's what I put on the...
Did it go back?
Yeah, but you can see there's a slice in it, because it didn't go all the way through.
Oh.
It's
It
just a little
must
slice.
have been like method acting.
What?
That I bit your tongue out, but I actually bit off another body.
No, yeah, well, it was magic. No, it just got stuck in your glove.
Yeah.
We actually went back, when we were looping, we ran it back so we could figure out what happened. It just got stuck in the glove. I spin off, and you can actually see it bleeding from your wrist. Thank you.
But to put it back in, ladies and gentlemen.
But it's like, how many years is it later, right? It's been a long time. And if I saw it today, and I saw that disappearing earring, I'd go nuts. Every time I saw it, I'd go crazy. So it was worth it to do it, I tell you. And I think there is actually one shot without it, because when I got up, it was ripped out. So that for that one shot, one reaction shot, it's not there. But for the rest of the film, it's there. God, being dedicated. That was for you. No, it's for my own ego, because I'd be going nuts. I hated that stuff. Actually, when I was young, like one of my very first jobs, I was talking to an extra, and he said he put on his watch for the scene, and the job was taking place in the 50s or something. He put on a modern watch, and I was like, why would you do that? He's like, because I wanted to be able to see it and notice it. And I'm like, so you destroyed a shot because you wanted to be able to point it out later to your friends? Oh, I hate that guy. And so that's kind of where the attitude comes from. It's like, we beg for this stuff, right? We beg for it. You go out 100 times before you book one job. You spend your life going on job interviews, right? And then the rest of the time training to go on job interviews. And then when you get one to purposely screw it up, to not put everything into it, it's just insane to me. It's like, it's a desecration almost. And I'm gonna start getting religious, but I don't know, this stuff means something to me. I know it's just acting, but I think acting is important.
I don't think you'd be
You know?
sitting
It's the second-
25 years later if it didn't mean as much to you.
It's the second oldest profession in the world. The first being, everybody knows, right? The second is the guy that told the story about it. So there you go.
Well, guys, I tell you what, I personally, and I think I can speak for everybody when I would say thank you for coming out. It's awesome to see you guys show up. It's amazing to see all you guys show up as well. But we've got an open stage, got an open mic. Is there anything that you guys would like to say
Wow, that way to dodge coming up with a question.
No, I mean, I got all kinds of questions, man, but I mean, you know.
No, yeah, I did it.
Well, we got
It's the
no
same thing I
before.
always want to say is thank you. You know, it's like I wouldn't have a job if it wasn't for you guys. I wouldn't have anything in my life if it wasn't for you guys. The list goes on and on. And
Yeah, I feel the same way. I feel the same way. I mean, I do want to say that I think that this is such an incredible time in history for horror lovers. Partially because everybody asked me, why did you stop acting after Demons 3? And it's because I couldn't get a job. Every big movie, every big TV show, every big everything, they look down their nose at horror movies and they say, oh, you did that thing with paint on your face. Now, every single Netflix show, every Apple TV, every FX, every HBO, it's vampires, it's horror, it's Night of the Living, it's Walking Dead, it's everything supernatural. Even the huge blockbusters, if you think about it, even things like Spider-Man and Batman and Gotham and even some things like Wonder Woman, and there's horror elements in this. So, first of all, you kept it alive for us. And secondly, what I think is interesting now is that there seems like there's a renaissance in the movie and TV world that has never happened before in my life. We're in a world now where an 80-year-old woman can get the lead in a movie. We're in a world where Dolly Parton's about to make another 9 to 5. And they said to her, are you ever going to quit acting? And she said, oh, well, maybe when I'm older. This is like something my aunt would say. But, so, character actors are working, comedians are working, people who don't look perfect are working. You don't have to be stick thin and look like a 22-year-old model to be working. You can actually be working because you're talented, you know, instead of being what the studios wanted that exact time. And the other cool thing about it is that now there are more independent filmmakers. Now, when we did Demons 1, you had to have a big fancy camera and you went to college and you studied photography to be a photographer. Now, my nieces could make movies on their phones when they were 8. They know how to edit it, they know how to put music on it, they know how to do everything. And so now every single person has the opportunity to be a storyteller. So you can make beautiful slideshows and movies and take pictures and tell stories, and you can write books online now. You don't need Random House the way I did. So it's just a really exciting time to be an artist. Nothing like this has ever happened before.
it's a good point. Yeah. So anyway, I'm back to finish my point. And the thing about appreciating a fan is I'm a fan too, you know? That's one of the reasons I love this stuff, because I love everything about it. And, you know, in LA, you have to be above it all and jaded, and I just never am. I love meeting people that I admire, and I admire their work, and I'm not afraid to tell them that I admire their work. And I will do a quick story. It's got nothing to do with this, but it's to illustrate it. My wife was working on a game show. She was casting it. And for some reason, they were shooting the pilot of this game show on Sunday on the NBC lot. And there was nothing going on, because television, nobody works on the weekends if they can avoid it, especially back then. Now they do, but back then, never. So they won't even let us go on our own because the lot's so empty. We got this one security guard who's leading us across the lot, down the hall, into the stages. And back then, I don't know if they still do it or not, but on huge stage doors, they have these barn doors. They're huge. They're like 30 feet tall, 10 feet across each door, they open. And painted on them, there would be the stars of whatever show shot there. and we walk by the Tonight Show set. And this is,
Oh,
I'm old, you know what, I'm not gonna lie, it's Johnny Carson on the door.
wow,
And I'm like, that's the Tonight Show. And the doors are open.
wow.
And the security guard and my wife are way in front of me. They're never gonna notice it. So I turn left. And I sneak in. And all I wanted to do was, I don't know, none of you are probably old enough for Johnny Carson, as far as I can tell. But he used to always play with pencils during the show. And I'm like, I'm gonna find one of those pencils and steal it. So I go and I find his desk and it's like covered in a white shroud. And I'm thinking, it's the Shroud of Turin. JC, right? I pull it, back then, I don't know, you've got to be old enough to understand how important Johnny Carson was. Johnny Carson was a kingmaker. I mean, there's nobody that compares to him today. There really isn't. So anyway, I look around, there's nobody there, so I pull the shroud off, and everything's gone. His coffee cup isn't there, the microphone gone. Nope. They clean it out every time, bastards. But the chair's there. So now I'm gonna sit at Johnny Carson's desk, damn it. So I'm sitting at the desk going, this is Johnny Carson's desk, this is the Tonight Show. Someday I'll be right over there in the couch. Yeah, this is cool. And I hear footsteps. I'm like, and then my wife comes walking in. And I'm like, where's the security guard? She's like, I don't know, I think he's just walking still. He was like a really old guy, and he was just, she's like, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm sitting at Johnny Carson's desk. What do you think I'm doing? You want to do it? She's like, hell yes, I want to do it.
Oh my gosh.
So she sits at Johnny Carson's desk. We laugh for a little bit. I cover it back up. We start going up the hall. We catch the security guard. He never even knew we were gone. I'm telling you, this took 5 minutes. He had no idea we were gone. And just about the time we were getting inside him, he turns and opens the door and goes, this is where you're supposed to be. So anyway. But yeah, you know, I'm a fan of all this stuff. I love this stuff. You know, I love, when I was just getting to know Susan, I don't think I've ever told this story in public before. When I was just getting to know Susan, see, my wife was a really big casting director at the time I met her. And this is back before everybody had everything phones. Everybody had a phone book, a Rolodex. And a Rolodex was like a serious business. Back then, when you retired, you could sell your phone book. I mean, there were certain people who could sell their phone book for a couple $100,000. That's how important this stuff was. And so you never touched anybody's phone book. Anyway, I knew her for quite a while. I knew her pretty well. I think we were just starting to date. She goes into the restroom, and her phone book's on her desk. So I grab it and I start thumbing through it. And I swear I thought it was a joke book. I didn't believe it. Everybody from Danny DeVito to Marlon Brando was in there. Addresses, phone numbers. David Beagleman, who was he was the president of Universal, Columbia. He was the president of Columbia Pictures. I just like name after name. I thought it was a joke. I thought she'd put them all in there in case somebody peeked. And I didn't say anything because I didn't want her to know, you know. And then she, like 2 days, 3 days later, she wanted to impress me. And she goes, what the hell was his name? Anybody remember the film Cat Baloo?
Yeah.
Who was the white? No, it was George Papard.
Yeah.
Remember George Papard?
Yeah.
She looks at me and she goes, you want to call George Papard? I'm like, what? She's like, you want to call George Papard? I'm like, yeah, yes, I want to call George Papard. She's like, call him up and tell him his call time on Wednesday is 9 a.m. I'm like, you mean just call him on the phone? You can do that? She's like, yes, you can. So anyway, I talked to his wife, and she was grateful to know about his call time. But like that was, you know, that was my introduction to this business. I thought it was going to be much easier than it was. But it's still great. It's a great life. And it's a great life, again, going back to the original point, because of you guys. You know, you really, and like you said, I'm one of you. I'm right there. And we feed this industry. And some of us are lucky enough to be able to live because of this industry. So there you go.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, please do me a favor, put your hands together for Mr. Hal Havins from the Amelia Kinkade. Thank you very much. Make sure to stop by the table and get some autographs.
Thank you very much, brother.
Thank you. Oh, yeah.